My name is Nicole Gritta, and I have the pleasure of serving as the International Justice of Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International, and I will be here this evening to moderate tonight's candidate forum. These videos will be posted on the convention landing page so that delegates at the 2024 convention have the benefit of learning about the candidates for the various positions on the International Executive Board and the International Tribunal. Tonight's candidate forum will include the candidates for the position of International Secretary and International Marshal. No candidates for the position of International Treasurer are able to participate tonight. As a reminder, as I just said, this is being recorded. And given the fact we only have two candidates here with us tonight, one for the International Secretary position, Lindsay Ramus, and one for the International Marshal position, Jonalyn Blount, I expect that tonight we will last no longer than an hour, and just want to go over a few ground rules before we begin. Each candidate will be given no more than 2 minutes to make opening remarks. If a candidate exceeds their time, we will mute their microphone in a kind and fraternal way. I will then, in my role as moderator, ask the candidates a series of prepared questions which have not been provided to the candidates ahead of time. At that point, candidates will have no more than 2 minutes to answer each question. And again, if they exceed their time, we will gently remind them of that. Following these questions, the moderator, myself, will ask additional questions that may be posed by the attendees, time permitting. So if you want to ask a question, please utilize the Q&A feature in the Zoom webinar platform. And then following all questions, each candidate will receive up to 3 minutes to make any closing remarks. So before we get started, any questions from our candidates?
No questions.
All right, if not, I will turn it over to Lindsay Ramus to make her opening remarks. She is seeking the position of International Secretary.
Thank you, Nicole, and good evening to everyone. As Nicole said, my name is Lindsay Ramus. I've been honored to serve on the International Executive Board as an at-large member to date. I'm ready to take on more responsibility and am running for the position of International Secretary. To me, the position of secretary is not just someone sitting and taking notes during board meetings. It is a vital part of the communication between the board members and also between the board and our members. When I look at the requirements for international secretary under our bylaws, it is to keep the records, record the minutes, and to be the custodian of our corporate records and seal. But when I look at what it takes to truly excel as a board secretary, it is strong communication skills. You are the conduit between the board members, making sure that they are prepared for meetings, and you have the ability to extract and communicate key information from sometimes lengthy board meetings to our members. It's also the ability to prioritize tasks, making sure that those requirements under the bylaws are met, but also done promptly and accurately. And it is to stay on top of the board and the executive office to ensure that our minutes are published timely to our members and effectively. And finally, it is familiarity with PAD structure, the records, and our governing documents. My background and experience on this board, on other boards, my PAD leadership over the years and involvement, and my legal career is well suited to excel in this position, this biennium. My goals as secretary are to ensure transparency and quality communication by one, taking thorough and accurate minutes, delivering them timely, to stay on top of the EO and or the IJ, to have the board vote promptly to approve them, all while maintaining my contribution as an active voting board member. And also for this biennium, my goal is to work with the executive office and the IJ to streamline the process from the point—
Thank you, Lindsay. That is your time. All right, Sister Blount, when you're ready, your remarks and your opening remarks for the position of International Marshal.
Thank you. Hello, brothers, sisters, and siblings.
My name, as stated before, is Jonalyn Blount, and I am our nomination committee's choice for International Marshal. I decided to run for International Marshal because I know that this position is the position on this board that I am most suited for. I have worked on continuing my education and understanding of parliamentary procedure. I have been able to use that knowledge throughout the many organizations that I belong in. I have also started getting professionally certified in the field of parliamentary procedure. I find it interesting and find it vital as a member of an organization, but also in this role as International Marshal. I am ready to be there to help ensure that people are where they are supposed to be at the time required, introduce those who are in attendance, and to help open our meetings through our rituals. I am also ready to help make sure that we are having a well-run meeting where everyone has the ability to speak and participate. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to both of our candidates for their opening remarks. We will now move to the question and answer session. So you both mentioned your service on the International Executive Board leading up to the upcoming biennium. So my first question, Jonalyn, will come to you on this one first, since Lindsay kicked us off. What role do you believe the International Executive Board plays as it relates to Phi Alpha Delta as a whole?
The role that I think the International Executive Board plays is as the guiding light to the organization. It sets the tone and the way for where the organization is going in the future. And it's important to have many different thought processes, people, diverse backgrounds on the board in order to have different viewpoints that really represent our membership and being able to really speak to what they're hearing on the ground from other members and what they're seeing in their own path as members of this organization. And that with them and their thoughts and those of of the rest of the membership, be able to push the organization in a way that keeps it relevant, keeps it on the forefront of the legal world, and also to be able to run the organization in a way that keeps it viable.
Thank you, Jonalyn. Lindsay, same question. I can repeat it if you need me to.
No need. I agree with everything that Jonalyn has to say. The way that I look at the board of Phi Alpha Delta is that PAD is still a business, and we are essentially the governing body that is elected to provide guidance, to perform our duties of strategic planning and oversight, and basically oversee management of the organization, including the executive office. I believe that our role should be higher level planning for PAD. That includes the strategic planning that we've been working on this past biennium, but also risk management of the organization and ensuring its viability in the future.
Thank you, Lindsay. So I think you both briefly touched on this next question as well. But Lindsay, I'm going to come to you first on it. Can you tell those watching what your time on the International Executive Board, how that has prepared you for the position that you're seeking?
Yes. So during the past biennium, we have accomplished a lot as a board. We have streamlined a lot of our processes that we will be following going forward. I have had the opportunity to look at all of our minutes from prior years from our various secretaries, to review them, to see what is successful and what is not when it comes to minutes, but then also to see that there is room for improvement with respect to the position of International Secretary and our current process by which we communicate important information to our members.
Y'all are just so succinct with your responses that I can't get unmuted and back to my timer quick enough. So that's what the little delay is for those who are watching. But I appreciate that. So same question, Jonalyn, how has your time on the IEB prepared you for the position you are seeking?
Sure. I would actually like to go a little bit further back to before I was on the IEB, when we had our convention by Zoom, our COVID convention, and sitting there and watching the current IJ have to facilitate that as Marshal, and being very impressed by the way that she handled not only the meeting, but herself and all of the moving parts in a place where we were not that familiar with. And then getting on the board in a different way. I ran for the board, didn't get elected, that's okay. But then a position came open and I put my best foot forward, got on the board, and then ran the following biennium as well. I think it has taught me a lot about how this board operates and how Phi Alpha Delta operates, and being able to see how the business side of this works, but also the fraternity side works and how it all works together. I definitely agree with Lindsay. I see places where we can improve and places where we're doing things really well, and maybe those outside the board are not seeing that. So really increasing our communication so there's better insight. But all of those different areas prepared me to run for international marshal, because I see where my strengths are. I've seen the strengths of people in this position. I've seen the weaknesses of this position. And I know that I can flourish not only in this position, but in moving this fraternity forward as a member of the board at this position.
Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna come, Jonalyn, to you first on this question. So innovation is a core value. Y'all have heard me say that time and time again over the past biennium. Tell me about any innovative tactics or tools that you would utilize to perform your duties as the International Marshal in a more efficient manner.
Okay. I think that's kind of a difficult question, but I think one of the biggest things that I can do as international marshal is really utilizing different tools that are available to me to be prepared, to be able to really go with the flow, be able to adjust based on what's going on around me. I know a lot of times at meetings and things, it's looking for the documents. Oh, I need the document to get this going. So making sure that I'm always prepared, I have it up, I have something with me that I can use, whether it's my iPad or my phone or a laptop or whatever it may be, to have my documents ready to really be able to communicate with whoever is attending, so that we can make note of that, to make it easier on our international secretary to keep track of that part. And then also any type of communications that need to go out, creating text lists and being able to text the group without necessarily creating a group me or a long text strand, and being able to really communicate between the members and get us to where we need to go. I know there's apps and things for that. And there's also apps that I can download personally and use that the members don't have to download to be able to communicate and be able to talk to me.
Thank you. Lindsay, same question. What types of innovative tactics or tools would you utilize to perform the duties as International Secretary in an efficient manner?
I don't know if my solution would be so much innovative as it would be actually taking the time to look into the process. So, and listening to what both sisters, Connie and Jen, had to say last night about their experience as a secretary, I see a unique opportunity to sit down with both the IJ and the executive director after this convention to nail down the process. And I have some ideas from my prior board experience of what that could look like to really streamline it so that everybody knows exactly what's to happen while allowing for some flexibility, understanding that future boards, future IJs may want to do things differently based on their own plans for the biennium, which we need to be cognizant of. But I also think, I mean, there's so much tech out there. I think it would be great. There's great to look into technology, be it apps, be it AI, that can be utilized by the international secretary to increase that, just the accuracy, be almost like a second set of ears and eyes during the general session to make sure we're not missing anything, but also to make it easier for future international secretaries, because it's also very important that the international secretary be able to be a very proactive board member.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've got two different streams of questions that your responses to that question lended themselves to. So I'm going to go down the one path. So Lindsay, you've talked about opportunities for improvement in terms of the minutes. But tell me about your approach, or tell us about your approach to taking minutes. What should they include? What should they not include?
Obviously, they should include a count of how many members voted, who voted for, who voted against, or whether it was unanimous. It should include all members who were, or all board members who were present at the board meeting. Some of this is accountability so that our members understand and know who is voting for what. Every action item that is brought needs to be addressed. It needs to be specific enough for our members to understand what exactly we were voting on. I don't think it needs to be word for word on discussion, but if there was a discussion, I think there should be key highlights of the board members who raised particular issues. And then if the agenda item is not voted on at that time and is carried forward, that should be noted. Whether or not the reason for pushing it forward needs to be in there, I think that's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
All right. Sister Jonalyn, I'm not going to ask you the same question. I have a slightly different question. So you've talked about how you believe you're the most suited for the role of international marshal at this time, and that you've been working on continuing education as it relates to parliamentary procedure and professional certification as it relates to being a parliamentarian. So can you describe for us a little bit more what your current experience and familiarity with Robert's Rules of Order looks like? And then also what that additional continuing education or certification process looks like.
Sure. I would say, as a board member, not only in Phi Alpha Delta, but other organizations, I have a very good grasp on Robert's Rules of Order, on basics, making a motion, amending, those kind of things. But I find it that more education is needed, because normally, especially under our current IJ, who's very knowledgeable in this as well, the issues that come up are not common issues. They are very obscure. They are very what you would see in a normal business meeting, on whether or not something can happen, or whether we can do this, or how do you do this on top of another thing. And I want to get to a place where I'm more on the expert level of that, instead of just between beginner and intermediate. I get to use what my knowledge through my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. We follow Robert's Rules of Order in pretty much any organization that I belong in, our Houston Lawyers Association, things like that. We always use it. And so I use that time when something's happening to go over, oh, this is how this works. And when they're like, yes, this is what we're doing, I'm like, I knew that, I got that right, yes. But I also got involved with this parliamentary group in Arkansas called the Pink Diamonds, who their focus is on parliamentary procedure, on teaching it, on addressing different areas, and for teaching other people how this helps be effective and how you can learn it not only in a board position, but as a member, because anybody can raise a question of parliamentary procedure.
Thank you. All right. So we've talked, both of you have talked a lot about, in response to questions in your opening remarks, about your experience on other boards. And I've heard other bar associations, most of which I presume are nonprofits. But talk to us about what other board experience you do have outside of Phi Alpha Delta, and how that can help you meet the demands of the position that you're seeking. And Jonalyn, I'll come to you first on this one.
Prior experience, I sat on a board in Little Rock, Arkansas called the Better Community Development. It was an organization that helped with transition, especially for people overcoming different types of addiction. So sitting on that kind of board was a little bit different, as not only did this board handle the running of the organization, but they also handled fundraising and the foundation piece that we have separate in a way, not in violation of any rules. But being on a board like that is kind of throwing you into the deep end, and so you get really quick training on what to do and what not to do. But I think most of my experience and the knowledge that I use when it comes to Phi Alpha Delta is from being a member, from watching what's going on, from getting an understanding of what's going on, to watching my sorority, to watching my legal associations and how they operate and how things operate. And when I'm not understanding something, going and looking it up and asking, hey, I don't understand why this happens that way. Can you please explain it to me? Or speaking to somebody that I know that is knowledgeable in the field and asking them, can you please explain to me how this works, how this is not in violation of this, or how our rules state we can do this, but we're doing that. And so using all of that has led me to being here. I'll be honest, I'm not the most knowledgeable person ever on Robert's Rules of Order, but I think I'm the person that is the most willing to put myself out there and get the knowledge and lean on people that are, and work my way up to just being on the forefront of it.
Thank you, sister. Lindsay, same question. Let me know if you need me to repeat it.
No, I think I remember it. So previously, I served on the board of directors for the Dallas Bar Association, which is one of the largest bar associations in the US, in the world. Huge operating budget. I was also the finance chair, both for the Dallas Bar Association, but also for for the foundation side. So I essentially had a dual role there. I helped basically implement the budget, explain it to our board members, get it approved. I served as a committee chair on a number of high-ranking committees within the Dallas Bar Association that gave me significant experience and exposure to the board process. I would add my own role as a business owner and partnership owner. While it's not a board, the role can be very similar. I own a number of corporations and LLC, and I'm also a member of multiple partnerships with unrelated individuals and other corporations. These are in different states over the last 15 years. And as part of my responsibilities, both to the partnership and to my own companies, I'm required to keep minutes to properly document things like changes in corporate structure, shareholder financial transactions, and asset acquisitions. I also handle all the bookkeeping for those. So I understand how to read financial statements and budgets. And so while I'm not running for the treasurer or position of treasurer this biennium, as a board member, and in the position of international secretary, I would still be responsible for reviewing those documents and ultimately approving PAD's budgets and financials.
Thank you, Lindsay. So you gave me a perfect segue to a question that I have. And obviously, for those of you listening, we have 5 officer positions. If you were here last night, you heard from 2 of the officer position candidates, international justice, international vice justice. Tonight, we're hearing from the international secretary and international marshal candidates. And then we've heard mention of the international treasurer position as well. So since it's just the 2 of you here, I'll ask it specific to these 2 positions, but how would you work together in your respective roles that you're seeking to accomplish some of the things that you've talked about as opportunities for improvement? So for this one, Lindsay, I will start with you.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, I'm gonna have to ask Jonalyn, probably for clarification on some of the Robert's Rules of Orders issues that come up during our board meetings. She may have to explain a few of them to me. Otherwise, I mean, I view the positions of Secretary, of Marshal, of Treasurers we all have an equal vote, but we are still there to, I guess, to support the IJ and the IVJ as well. I'm not really sure how much we would. I mean, John and I feel like work very well together. We communicate very effectively. I'm just not sure how much the secretary position would really need to rely on the marshal other than to confirm that all of the Robert's Rules of Orders issues are reflected accurately in the minutes. Sorry if that wasn't a good answer.
I heard the answer and I appreciate it. Sister Jonalyn, same question to you. How would you work together with Lindsay if you were the international marshal and she was the international secretary to accomplish some of the things you talked about tonight?
Sure. So Lindsay talked about earlier of making sure that we're keeping good records of who's in attendance and making sure we're keeping good records of who voted for what, making sure we're explaining different things. As international marshal, one of the things that I'd really be able to help the international secretary with is keeping a good record of who is in the meeting, who left, when they came back, and things like that. But also paying attention to how she is keeping up with everything. So I can definitely help step in and talk about giving the secretary a little bit of time to catch up, making sure that the international secretary has the ability to be able to get the notes that they need, but also, as Lindsay talked about earlier, is being an engaged board member and being able to have a say and being able to keep up with going on and not overlooked because she's over here trying to take notes. So really helping to keep the order in the meeting so that the international secretary can fulfill their role, but as international secretary, but also fulfill their role as a board member.
Thank you, Jonalyn. So y'all have talked about voting and accountability and making sure that the votes are accurately reflected and that we're keeping up with who is voting and who's present in a meeting, who's left, who's come back, all the things that, happen in the normal trajectory of board business that we've all experienced if we've served on any type of board. But we also know that boards vote and boards often don't vote unanimously. So how would you handle a situation? And if you want to give an example of how you have handled a situation, that's fine too. But how would you handle a situation where you voted against something that was ultimately passed by the IEB? And Jonalyn, we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. I feel like I've had quite a few situations where I voted against something that was ultimately passed by the IEB. And while it's unfortunate that I didn't get my way, it is part of being a board, a part of being a voting member. Everybody's not always going to agree with you. You're not always going to be able to convince somebody that the way you're seeing something is the correct way. And you have to come to terms with being okay with it. It's okay to say why you may think something is incorrect or why you think it was voted incorrectly. And, there are ways through Robert's Rules of Order to call for a revote. Usually you have to be on the winning side, but there are ways to do that. So I think, and I mean, we could look at this board, we can look back and see where things were not agreed upon. But at the end of the day, as a member of the International Executive Board, I have to go along with the majority vote, whether I agreed with it or not. I have to be able to push whatever it is that we're voting through. I need to be able to explain why the vote went the way that it did, and this is what it's going to look like for the near future. And I think that's why it's important to have different voices on there, because that's how, even if we don't agree, we get to a place that's as positive as can be for the fraternity as a whole.
Thank you, Jonalyn. Lindsay, same question, can repeat it, but I think you're going to tell me I don't need to.
Well, that was an excellent response. I ditto absolutely everything that she says. I completely agree that there are times as a board member that we do not agree with votes, or maybe we question votes. I know we've had a couple of experiences this past biennium where just by virtue of a board member asking a question, it causes everybody to pause and to think a little bit more about the issue. And I think that that's very important. I think it's important as a board member to fully understand what it is that you're voting on, because you may think you agree or disagree with something, but maybe you don't if you don't fully understand what you're voting on. That's all that I would have to add.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you. So I know you both were here last night, so you heard me ask this question of our International Vice Justice candidates. So hopefully the question doesn't come as a surprise, but me asking it to you now should come as a surprise, because like I said at the beginning, the candidates did not get these questions ahead of time. But of our core values, with which one are you most aligned and why? So Lindsay, we'll start with you on this one.
I love this question. With professionalism, when it comes to serving on the board, I identify professionalism as being reliable, setting your own high standards, and showing that you care just about every aspect of your job on the board. I think it's about being organized and holding yourself accountable for your actions and for your words as well. Definitely professionalism.
All right, Jonalyn, same question.
Sure. The one that I identify with the most right now would be integrity. I think just looking at everything that's going on, not only on this board, but in the world and in the legal profession and the things that are legal profession adjacent, it's important to show that you have integrity. It's important to show that everything that you do is being led by that you want to make sure that you are showing that you have the great understanding of what perception means and what it looks like when you do certain actions. And I don't want anybody to ever question the integrity I have or question why decisions were made the way they were. I want everyone to remember that I want everything to be transparent, and through that, I really align with integrity right now. I just want everything to be right.
Thank you. All right, so for this next question, y'all have kind of skirted around a couple different ways and forms, but to be fair, I haven't asked the question directly, but what do you believe are the three most important things that the International Marshal to you, Jonalyn, or the International Secretary to you, Lindsay, must do? And Jonalyn, will come to you first on this one.
Okay, so must do, can I ask a clarifying question?
You may.
So must do as in the position on the board. So I am International Marshal. I must do these following things.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just making sure I was clear. I would say the three most important things that International Marshal must do is to help ensure that we're running a clean meeting, for lack of a better word, making sure that we are staying on topic and staying organized and really moving through the agendas the way that we need to, making adjustments as needed, and being able to operate in a way that make sure everyone's voices is heard. I also think that it's important as the International Marshal to really put effort forward. I found throughout the organization that the international, well, not even the International Marshal position, but the Marshal position by itself is kind of looked at not really as a throwaway position, but kind of as a lesser position. And I want to really, as International Marshal, bring up the integrity of the position and how, and really focus on why this position is important and why do we have it and how that trickles down from the international down to the chapter level, the alumni level, etc. And how the Marshal is such an integral part of any type of board at any level. And then the third thing is not completely specific to International Marshal, but specific to me, is speaking up and asking questions and being willing to go out on a limb to find out why things are happening the way they're happening, and being a voice and making sure my voice is heard and other members' voices are heard if they're not willing to speak up.
All right. Thank you, Jonalyn. Lindsay, same question.
So the three most important things to me for this biennium as International Secretary would first and foremost doing my job, which is to prepare accurate records of our meetings. The second is to, for me, is to work to develop a streamlined process by which minutes, by which our meetings are communicated to our members. And that is part of, I believe, increasing the transparency and reassuring our members that we as a board, we as an organization are committed to transparency and to communication. And then my third, and this is somewhat as a board member, but I believe also kind of spills over into my role as International Secretary, that would be to stay on the board, especially the IJ, the IVJ, to make sure that they are implementing and following the strategic plan that we worked so hard on this last biennium. We have dates in there, we have goals, we have objectives, and it would be to make sure that we are following those.
Thank you. I think that's the first time we've heard the word strategic plan tonight, but it does lend itself to a nice segue to a question we received from one of our attendees. So over the past few bienniums, there have been working groups and committees that did some great work, but time in the biennium ran out. Would you be willing to go back and look at some of those reports? And would you be receptive, for example, the governing documents working group has been working on some items, but wanting to make sure that that work does not go without further action. So, it's a long question, but I think at the heart of the question is looking at the work that past working groups, committees, and councils have done. What would be your plan to make sure that that is addressed by the next board? So, Lindsay, I'll come to you first on this question.
That would be a resounding yes. I absolutely believe that we should be willing to go back and look at some of those past reports. I assume that the board will be seeing some of those reports coming in the near future that will show, I speak a little bit from personal experience, having chaired the programming committee the last year or so. I expect to see reports coming in from some of our other councils and committees of work that they still plan to do even into the next biennium. And as a current board member, and if I remain on the board, I absolutely believe that we should make sure that the newer incoming board members who may not have that historical background on it, but that they understand, and if need be, even have those direct like pick up the phone and talk to these council and committee chairs to make sure that their concerns are addressed.
Thank you, Lindsay. Jonalyn, same question. Can repeat it if you need me to.
I'm good. I would say in response to that, just because the biennium ended doesn't mean the need ended. So the reasoning why these working groups were put together or these different groups were created or impaneled was because there was a need out there. And if that need had not been fully fleshed out and finished, or if based on the work that they did, they see some other needs, then those need to be addressed. We love in the legal profession to talk about not reinventing the wheel. So if you take the work that these previous working groups and different groups have done and the reports that they have written up about what they see and just lay it to the side because a new biennium has started, then we're doing everybody a disservice. We're doing a disservice to the people to our volunteers who did this work, because none of us are getting paid to do this. We're doing a disservice to the organization because the same problem that we saw at the beginning, if we didn't fully address it, is going to come back around. And if we don't look back to what we did, we're going to start over from ground zero, and we're going to waste precious time and effort that we already expended. And so I know in our governing docs, we have different areas that must be done and some that may, and it may be up to the IJ on what they're seeing for their biennium. But as a member, we can really lean on our IJ and say, this is what we're seeing based on the reports that we read, what we're hearing from the members. We really need this. We need this completed. We need this finished. We need this to come back. If it's something that had been put to the side just because of whatever reason, this needs to come back, and we need to circle this back around and get this started again.
All right. Thank you, Jonalyn. So one thing that I think we can probably all agree on, I'm sure there's many things we can all agree on, but I think one thing we can all agree on is that the legal profession is ever evolving and changing. And if we look at a granular level of the moving forward together theme, we'll see that we're trying to prepare our members to meet those challenges head on. So as a board member, well, specifically, you are both running for officer positions, but what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Phi Alpha Delta over the next 2 years, and how will you tackle it? And that, Jonalyn, that one goes to you first.
Sure. Our biggest challenge is remaining relevant. When in this legal profession that we're dealing with and the different generations that we're dealing with, we're really not fully showing why an organization like Phi Alpha Delta is still relevant, why somebody needs to join us as pre-law, why they need to join as a law student, why after they graduate from law school they should still be involved as an alumni member, and things like that. What are we giving back to the student, service to the student and service to the profession? What are we giving back that shows why we are still important, why we are needed more so than just you joining your bar association? And as in this coming biennium, I really would like to, as the Jen Schroeder, who is running for IVJ, who is the nominees picked for IVJ, stated before, like she really wants to focus on getting our law school membership back up. So really talking
Jonalyn, I think you may have frozen for a moment for those of you who've been keeping up with national weather trends. Sister Blount is joining us from Texas. So I think her internet may have cut out. I know she was having some connectivity issues. So we'll give her a moment. Hopefully she can get back connected here. So just bear with us for just a few moments. I don't want to move on to Sister Lindsay if Jonalyn can get back on here quickly. So I'm going to turn off my microphone very briefly and send her a quick note to see if she's, oh, well, it looks like she's dropped. So I think my prediction was correct. If she's able to join us back, we'll certainly let her finish her thought process in response to that question. But this is the part of, being always flexible and making sure that we adapt and adjust as needed. So Sister Ramus, I'm gonna pose the question to you, and if Sister Blount rejoins us, we'll certainly let her finish her response, but let me know if you need me to repeat it.
I don't. And actually what's interesting is what I view as one of the biggest external threats facing PAD right now is just where Jonalyn was leaving off, which is our declining law school membership. It has decreased significantly. It is somewhat of a sign of changing law school enrollment in general and what law students are looking for as far as organizations are concerned that they're joining. My concern is that as we see law student enrollment decline, I am concerned that that will have a negative impact. We may not see it right away. We're currently seeing even more pre-law enrollment. But if our pre-law members do not see the value of the connections with the law students, or alternatively, our alumni members, if we don't have pre-law, how are we getting the message out there for alumni to join the organization? To me, our law school enrollment plays a vital part to our organization. All of our members, of course, are very important, but I do believe it is concerning with the decrease in enrollment. And fortunately, that problem has been identified within the strategic plan, and that is something that this next board will be focusing on. And hopefully we can find some really good solutions.
Sister Blount, I did want to allow you to finish your thought. I explained to folks that you're joining us from Texas and we're likely facing some internet challenges. So I'll give you a second, make sure you're ready. I don't want to put you right back on the spot, but whenever you're ready, we ended actually kind of where Lindsay was talking about is the last thing that at least that I heard, which was focusing on the decline in law student membership.
Okay. I apologize if I did anything. I had a really great one after I fell off the service. But basically, it's understanding and figuring out how we fit back into the legal profession and how we can fully support different memberships at different levels of membership, support our members at different levels of memberships, and really moving through the different levels into the legal profession, working to identify how we can support, give members the support that they need, that they will not find anywhere else. And I'll end it there.
Thank you, sister. So we are drawing quickly upon the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of the time expectations I set at the beginning. So I do have one final question for each of you, and then we'll allow you time to make your closing remarks. So the final question is, and I'll go to Lindsay first on this one. Why do you feel you are the best person to become the next international secretary?
You're on mute, Lindsay.
You're on mute.
Except for that. The things that I excel at generally in life and in this profession translate well to the position of international secretary. I am extremely well organized, detail oriented. I thrive with deadlines. They say a lot of lawyers are procrastinators. My solution to that is I set tighter deadlines, allowing for more of a cushion by which to meet the real deadlines. I'm also, I believe, not to toot my own horn, I believe I'm a fairly good communicator. I am a good consensus builder, and I communicate well with the board members, with the executive office, and with any of our members who approach me. Very happy to talk to them. I'm also good at taking large amounts of information, of data, and extracting what is important in that and memorializing it in a way that is digestible for others.
Thank you, Lindsay. Same question, Jonalyn. Why do you think that you are the best person to become the next international marshal?
I think that I'm the best person to become the next international marshal because I want it. I saw this position. I saw how the people who have previously been in this position operate. I've seen how he operates. I see be I want to be the person that helps open the meetings. I want to be the person that introduces those who are joining us from wherever they may be joining us. I want to be the person that the parliamentary procedure. I want to be the voice for the people who may not always want to speak up. I want to be able to be heard and understood. And I feel that in this position, that suits my skills at this time.
Thank you, Jonalyn. So as a reminder, we have reached the conclusion, and that is time for closing remarks. Lindsay, you began. So Jonalyn, I'm going to let you start with your closing remarks, and then we'll turn it over to Lindsay. And if I think I already said this, but 3 minutes is your time for the closing.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for coming out, for spending your evening with us and letting us be able to tell you why we think we're the best people for these positions. And if you are a delegate, I hope I have really shown you why the nomination committee chose me as their pick for international marshal, and I hope you vote for me. If you're not a delegate, I hope to see you at convention, but I also hope you tell your delegate friends to vote for me. And I know Nicole's going to plug this later, but if you haven't registered for convention, it's not too late, and we would love to see you guys there. So not only that we see your face, but we can also talk to you and see how you're feeling about Phi Alpha Delta and the needs of the organization. So please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonalyn. Lindsay, time for your closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, I was actually not slated for the position of international secretary. However, this is a position that I considered very long and very hard. I spoke to a number of board members. I reviewed what was needed in the position of secretary. I researched the qualities of a good board secretary, and I came to the conclusion that I would make a very good international secretary. And I hope that what I've said here tonight, I'm also open for other questions that any of our members may have. I hope I have shown you that I would be a very effective and a very good international secretary for this organization. And that there is always room for improvement, but that I would be able to improve this position and the strength of our board even more with my service. Thank you.
Well, thank you. On behalf of everyone who's watching or who will watch this in the lead up to our 65th Biennial Convention and Leadership Conference, I certainly appreciate, sisters, your willingness to continue your service to our beloved fraternity. It is much needed, and I appreciate your time this evening and answering questions and telling our members more about why you are seeking the positions that you are running for. To our members, like Jonalyn mentioned, it's not too late to register for convention. If you are a law student who's watching this, there is still funding available. If funding is what is holding you back, please reach out to Andrew in the executive office, Andrew@pad.org, and he can walk you through what funding options are available to you. And we look forward to hopefully seeing many of your faces in Pittsburgh. These candidate forums, again, will be posted on the convention landing page. So once they are posted, I encourage anyone who's watching live to make sure to remind your fellow brothers, sisters, and siblings to watch this so that they can make an informed vote at the convention assembled in less than a month. I also thank all of you who have hung with us throughout the evening. We do have 2 remaining candidate forums this week. Tomorrow evening, we will hear from our candidates for the position of International Board Member at Large. And then on Thursday evening, we will hear from our candidates for the position for positions on the International Tribunal. So if you've not yet registered for those, as a reminder, you do need to register for them separately, but please do so. And with that, I will wish everyone a wonderful and safe evening. And thank you again for being here and being a part of this process. Have a great night.